Hey guys, welcome to the Pen Habit. Glad to have you here for another pen review video. Before I start on the review, I wanted to thank the Van Ness Pen Company at vanness1938.com for providing the pens for today's review. You'll understand why they did toward the end when I'm talking about the prices, but in the meantime, thank you for providing them for review and eventual giveaway. This is another giveaway pen. I've got a lot of great giveaway pens this season, so as you've probably noticed by now. Anyway, let's dive in. The pen for today's review is the Sheaffer Legacy II. Now, back in the 60s, Sheaffer came up with the Sheaffer PFM, or the pen for men, with some really hysterically sexist ads. I mean, you can find them online. They're pretty funny in a not funny ha-ha, more funny uh-oh kind of way. In any case, back in the 90s, Sheaffer was struggling. You know, they had just been purchased by Bic. They were struggling to figure out how they were going to survive in this modern world. And one of the things they tried to do was to come up with a pen line that was very similar to the PFM called the Legacy. And there was the Sheaffer Legacy I, the Sheaffer Legacy II, and then another, I think the Sheaffer Legacy Heritage. Now, I'm not a Sheaffer lorist. I don't know all of the differences between them, but it is my understanding that Sheaffer Heritage was just a standard cartridge converter filled pen. I don't really know the difference between the Legacy I and Legacy II. I couldn't find any really explicit information online doing my research. But it's pretty clear, I don't have a PFM to show you for comparison, but it's pretty clear that the Legacy I and the Legacy II are very, very much an ancestor of the PFM. Made from metal, the Legacy II comes in a variety of different colors. This is the black version. It's a metal lacquer on metal. This is the copper version. Now it's not actually made of copper. It's kind of a brown, shiny metal. It's almost like a brown ruthenium type coating. It's beautiful. I really like the copper one. The black one's nice too, but the copper is just different enough that it stands out for me. So I'll show you the black one to start off with. So it's, you've got kind of a rounded top here. You've got the Sheaffer clip, which is very consistent across a lot of their pens. It's hinged, which is nice. I've got the little white dot on the top of the clip, which, if you know much about Sheaffer history, used to indicate a lifetime warranty, and then they changed it to the lifetime of the first owner, and then they just changed it to mean it was a mark of quality. So, it doesn't really mean anything anymore because they put it on all of their pens, but once upon a time it used to have a meaning. So nice flat line clip. It's got very much kind of that 60s postmodern vibe about it, very streamlined and modern kind of a look to it. The big fat cap band says Sheaffer, and that's it. And then the pen tapers down to a flat point down here. Now, one of the things that is interesting about the Legacy II is that this is a touchdown filler. And I'm not a Sheaffer, again, I'm not a Sheaffer lorist or a Sheaffer historian. I'm not completely up to speed on this. But back in the day, especially with the PFM, Sheaffer had a system called the snorkel system. So basically you'd twist the end of the pen and a little tube would extend from the nib so you could ink up from that tube without having to dip the nib in the bottle of ink and get it all dirty. Cool system. From what I understand, it is a real pain in the butt to clean, or to repair. I've never had one. I've never tried to repair it, but from what I understand, they're a real pain to repair. Along with the snorkel, there was a touchdown system, which is kind of the precursor to a modern day vacuumatic filler. It's like a cross between a vacuumatic filler and a pneumatic filler. And I'll show that to you here. I'm going to take the cap off and we'll get to the section in the nib in just a second. But in the old pens, this metal tube here was connected, it was attached to the section. And then at the end, there was a little hole, and inside there's a latex sac. So to fill the pen, with or without the snorkel, you'd unscrew the back of the pen, pull up this tube, stick the nib in the ink, or stick the snorkel in the ink, and then push it down. Pushing it down would compress the latex sac inside that metal tube. And then as you got the tube to the very bottom, the air would release. They've got, you can see it here, a little, oh, you can't see it unless I put it on the screen, a little channel here. So as you push it down, once it gets all the way down, that releases the vacuum, releases the pressure that builds up. The latex sac re-expands, sucks ink up, and that's how that works. Now on the Legacy I and Legacy II, Sheaffer did something a little unusual, but I think wise for the modern era, which was that they also made it possible for you to remove this filler here and replace it with a standard Sheaffer, twist converter or cartridges. So if you didn't want to use this touchdown filler or you didn't have bottled ink, you could still use the Legacy I or Legacy II. The only downside to that is on the original touchdown fillers, as I understand it, you really only had to do the touchdown once in order to get a really full fill on the pen. Because that removable touchdown converter is not as airtight as the old system was, which was attached to the pen, it doesn't work quite as well, so you have to kind of pump the touchdown filler twice. You have to try to fill it twice to get quite as full a fill. It's a cool system. It's a little bit of a pain to clean, but once you get used to it, it's not too bad. I actually discovered that if you just stuck the nib in some water and, you could blow into that little hole on the end of the touchdown converter to compress and release the ink sac several times pretty rapidly. So that actually worked out pretty well. And because it's removable, you can just put a bulb syringe on the nib section, and that works nicely. As far as the nib section goes, this is one of Sheaffer's lovely inlaid nibs. So it's a very conical section, kind of comes down to a point. You can tell that they were going after the same sort of vibe as the Parker 51 was going for, that very no step down, no threads, very kind of streamlined look when the pen is uncapped. I actually find that I like this look a little bit better than that of the Parker 51. The nib designation width is right here on the back, but then you've got this really, really beautiful long inlaid nib. Now, inlaid nibs can be a little bit tricky to work with. They can come off, they don't often, but it is possible. They're a little bit more difficult to adjust because you can't pull them out of the pen as easily as you can friction fit nibs, but they're really eye-catching, really attractive. And in the case of every Sheaffer inlaid nib I've ever used, they write like a dream. This is an 18 karat gold nib, and it is very soft and very juicy and quite lovely. So the pen does not, for me, need to be posted. It's long enough, and because the section is tapered like this, you can hold it all over the place depending on how you like to hold your pen. The pen can be posted. It posts quite deeply. It does add some extra weight. This is not a light pen, but it posts so deeply that it's still really nicely balanced. And I'm comfortable using this pen either posted or unposted in my hand. I know I say I love a lot of nibs, and I do. I've got a lot of really great nibs in my collection. They either came great, or I made them great, or I took them someone to make them great for me. There are very few in my collection that I like as much as I love this inlaid nib. It is ludicrously smooth. I mean, it is probably a 1 on the feedback scale. There just is no feedback. It is also very nice and juicy. You know, it's a little tiny bit on the wide side for a medium nib, but it's not bad. But this pen just glides across the page. You hardly need to touch it to the paper at all, and it just writes every time. There's been no ink starvation, no hard starting, no skipping, no problems of any kind in any way, any shape, or any form. Plus, I'm sorry, but that just looks cool. It looks cool to write with it. It looks cool to watch your nib as you're writing. It's just a cool looking pen. It is wonderfully balanced in the hand. It writes like a dream. You know, I just don't know what else to say about it. It's really, really nice. I also got one of these pens and had it ground into an architect's nib. And I've talked about this before, but an architect's nib is basically it's a stub, which is, you know, kind of flat this way, but it's flat this way. It's like a stub turned 90 degrees. And it's pretty dependent on the angle at which you hold the pen. So if you're looking at it sideways, if you've got a vertical, if you hold your pen like this, obviously the nib is going to be different than if you hold your pen like this. So they have to grind architect nibs for the way you write. But I took one of the medium nibs and had it ground to an architect nib. So you can see here, these are the vertical strokes. These are the horizontal strokes. And it's a medium architect's nib. It's not a wide, broad or anything like that. But look at how wet that is. It's nice, flowy ink, and there's, you know, a little bit of give to the nib. It really is just a gorgeous, gorgeous writer. Both this one and the regular medium, which I used earlier, you know, all of them just